All right, hey everybody, welcome to the Illustration Masterclass for this Friday. Thanks for joining me. I'm Kyle Webster, and I'll be your host here at behance.net/Adobe Live or be.net/Adobe Live. If you want to join the chat, please head on over there so we can have some conversations together. If you have questions to ask me about anything I'm doing, today I'm drawing in Photoshop. Sometimes I draw in Photoshop, sometimes I draw in Fresco. Today it's good old Photoshop. We're talking about fan art today. Now, of course, you're going to see millions of images of fan art all over the web. You're going to see Instagram posts. You're going to see everything else. The thing about fan art that I like, that excites me, is when someone brings their own interpretation of the characters to the art, and it really feels like something that was done with a unique voice. I wanted to talk about the importance of this because this is what will attract other people to the work, including if you're an illustrator trying to get some work out there, you're just starting out. Oftentimes I'll see people's portfolios, so they will include some fan art and things like that. This is problematic if the fan art is too similar to the original creation. Remember, if you're drawing something like a character from animation or a character from a movie that has a very distinct look to them and you're simply copying what you see, this is not interesting to art directors or employers. They want to see that you have the ability to interpret the subject matter and to bring a little something fresh, a little something unique and new to it. That's going to matter. So let's talk about that today in the demonstration that I'm going to do. I'm going to draw today two of my favorite characters from one of my favorite shows, which is Over the Garden Wall. And this is Wirt and Greg, two brothers. And I'm going to try and just take the characters as they are and just draw them slightly differently. That's all. It's simple as that. If you draw them a little differently and bring your own kind of style to it, that's usually enough to get it done. Now, some people can go really extreme and take something like Tintin, another one of my favorite characters. I've seen people interpret Tintin by drawing Tintin in a modern day setting. So maybe like, driving a Tesla down the road or whatever, having a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Taking that character and taking them and placing them in a different environment, as well as changing the way they appear stylistically while still being recognizable. Like you're paying homage to the character rather than simply copying the way the original artists drew that character. That's the idea here, okay? I had a couple of examples that I put on Twitter today if you want to check out my tweet about that, where I drew Captain Haddock as sort of more of a soft, fuzzy kind of a painting. Rather than that clear line, if you like it, that French Belgian comic style that Hergé popularized the 40s, 50s, and 60s with his books. That's just another example of a way to do it. I also drew Harry Potter in a very simplified graphic kind of a style. These are the kinds of examples I'm talking about. Let's say hi to some folks who are joining us today. Christelle is here, hello, and Fabio and Umacorn and Wade. And Stephen, hello, nice to see you. And Bliss, hi, how's it going? And Cryo, hello. And Annika and Cryo, our hero from yesterday's Draw Along show. Getting us out of a jam with Santa getting stuck in the snow. Appreciate that. Alrighty, so why don't we jump to the good stuff, which is the drawing. Bear with me 1 second. I'm just going to turn off my space heater. It's really cold in the house today, so I gotta turn that off. I've had it cooking in here so I could make the room nice and warm and be comfortable while I'm drawing for you all. Okay, so now you can see here I've got this little sketch. All right, here are my references on the right, and I've got the original cartoon drawings that you see, the character art from the original Over the Garden Wall. There's Wirt over there, and there's little Greg with his froggy, whose name I always forget because he changes the name of the frog a lot. And so in my illustration here, this little sketch I've done, I just want to have them walking through the woods, which is a typical thing you see in the show. So I'm not really changing the setting or any of that kind of stuff. What I am trying to do is change the way that I draw the characters. So if you look over here at the way that Wirt is drawn, okay, this is dead simple. All right, let's just study for a moment the choices that are made here by the artist. For the nose, you have nothing but a triangle. All right, the eyes are these almost perfect circles, like so. Nice big irises, right? And that mouth shape is very simple as well. Whoops, there we go. Look at the simplification of the hair, just these little shapes like so. All right. Everything very clear, very crisp, very, you get the idea. Okay. Now, so with the way that he's drawn, My idea, although I'm drawing them from profile, is to take these shapes and do something more along the lines of this with it. So I am imagining that his eyes are more kind of like this, okay? And the nose is more sort of turned up like that. And I'm gonna give him a little point to the chin there, like so. Maybe tone down the size of the ears just a bit, like that. And give the hair a bit more life coming out of that hat, okay? Like that. So he's the same character, just stylistically slightly different choices. Now we're missing eyebrows over here, but you notice that in these other drawings he does have eyebrows. They're very small. And for me, what I want to do is give them a bit more personality, darken them a little bit, like that. And that's really it. That's my interpretation that I'm going with. And so it helps to do an exercise like this, where even though I'm not drawing him from that angle, right? Here's my front view right here. I'm drawing a profile of that, and I'm thinking in the back of my mind about what that profile would look like if I used this front view character and turn him to the side, okay, so that the proportions should be about the same. The only difference you'll see here from the front view and the side is that from the side I really get an idea of how that hair is kind of puffing out from behind, or underneath, excuse me, that hat. Okay, so I like that detail right there. Whoops, I'll go back to my sketch here and make sure I get that collar right on his little cloak there. Now the same thing could be said for our friend Greg here, okay? So I've really just jotted in some stuff. You're not seeing a lot of detail here, all right? But it's that idea of giving him features that are just ever so slightly more true to life, okay? Rather than having them be so simplified to the point of being, you know, completely and utterly unrealistic. You know what I'm saying? That's really the goal here. And we've got his funny little overalls. Now you'll notice how they're drawn here. They're puffy at the bottom. And for me, I'm thinking more like just that be like regular shorts kind of at the bottom, like this. Let me get those shapes right. So you can actually see the cuff at the bottom and the little legs coming out from there. Okay, it's almost like he's wearing stockings in this one. You can see those like legs coming out. So I guess I'll keep it like that. The sketch is extremely rough. We've got our frog here, right? He's got slightly better like frog proportions. You know, a little bit more realistic to what a real frog would be. Okay, so that's something I wanted to do as well. Now this is not like we're not talking about realism. That's another way you could approach this. You could take this and you could do, you know, a realist approach to it. And that would be a completely different choice. And probably a good one. Probably fun to look at and see, you know, how could you make that work? That could be pretty exciting to look at. Fun for the viewer. But that is not what I'm doing here. I'm just sticking with a cartoony approach, if you like. But a different cartoony approach from what we're all familiar with the original cartoon. Okay, so that is the idea. And that's really kind of the essence of what we're talking about today, is can you take the thing that's inspiring you, the material that you enjoy and like and love so much that you want to make some kind of a tribute to it, and can you go a step beyond simply copying what's there? That is the goal. And in doing so, I think you'll create something that's a little bit more interesting for the average viewer. Let's see here. Oh yeah, that's true. I've seen that too, Steven. Like taking a character and if they're a boy character, swapping them out to be a girl character or whatever. That's a cool thing I've seen too. Oh, Wade is asking who's seen Over the Garden Wall. Yes, I will tell everybody who will listen to me that it takes a little minute to get into it. First 2 episodes or so, you really got to sort of get familiar with the style of it and the tone of the show. But Once you're really into it, you will just love it. It's such a unique piece of work. It's very short. It's only 10 episodes, and each episode is about 11 minutes long. And it's just a beautiful little piece of work. It was a mini series voiced by some of my favorite actors on earth. John Cleese, for example. Elijah Wood plays Wirt. Yeah, just it's quite an accomplishment, and there's a wonderful book you can get. Speaking of books and art, actually, I think I may have on one of my draw along episodes shown you the art book from that. But the art book is, I think, probably the best art of book that I own, believe it or not. And I do own many, some Pixar ones and Marvel and whatnot. But the Over the Garden Wall really gives you a wonderful look at so much preliminary drawing. And that's what's exciting about it, is getting to see the sketches and how these people come up with these characters and the many versions of them that existed before the finals were chosen. I bought the DVD, by the way. I think could not have been more than $15 for the entire series. Worth every penny. I've watched it 3 or 4 times. My kids have watched it and they adore it. Wonderful piece of work. Let's see here. I'm just checking to see if there are any questions before I move on. Hi, Lucas. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. Hi, Vitor. New folks are joining in. Remember, folks, if you're watching on YouTube or on Twitter, I'm following the live chat over on BE, as in to be or not to be, .net/Adobe Live. Okay, I know that some people sometimes make comments and things on YouTube, and I can't see those, so just letting you know. All right, so here we go. Why don't we take this and start to refine it a little bit. Now, there are lots of ways I could go with this. I could go with just solid color, and I could just make shapes and paint inside of those shapes. That would be a fine choice, and that would already be different from what the original art looks like, because it is line art with flat color. Right, that is the style that is employed for the cartoon. So there already you have a departure stylistically. These are the kinds of simple decisions you can make to differentiate the art that you're creating from the original. And if, for example, it were something that was all shape-based art with no line work, then you could go the other way and use the line work. These are simple things to do. If, for example, there's no real rendering in your source material, in this case, in Over the Garden Wall, everything's very flat, right? We don't see a lot of shading, so to speak. We don't even see cell shading, honestly. The characters are drawn just flat. Now, the environment, of course, does have rendering in it. You see shadows, and you see light and shadow. You see form. And so it's a cool separation in between those two styles, and I like that. You could choose to do the entire piece in a more rendered way, a more painterly way, if you like. And that could be another way to go. Because of the time constraints we have today, I'm just going to go with a line art, I think. Well, it's hard for me. This is the thing. It's hard for me to decide because I like doing so many things. Making selections and painting inside them might be kind of a fun way to go as well. So I'm kind of torn. I don't know. Let's knock our sketch back. Actually, I'll keep this up here, and I'll just eliminate this little bit that eats into our drawing there so it doesn't get in the way, but then you can still see the inspiration there for the redraw of Wirt, okay? And hopefully that all made sense. I know I went through it quickly, but just that idea of taking the basic features, changing them slightly, and changing the way in which they're drawn, but still keeping true to the general design of the character. I hope that's clear. All right, so we're going to take this, we're going to knock it back, go to my opacity, and just send it back to about 30%. So that's really nice and light. And then up here at the top, I think I'm going to go with sort of a nice brown kind of color for the ink, because that sort of suits the tone. There's always sort of this fall color. There's a warmth to this show. Those of you who've seen it know what I'm talking about. And for the line art, I'm using right now the little brush that I use for the draw along. That's probably fine for now. And it allows me to do lines that have weight to them, so I can have varying different kinds of weight. So I could have lines that have thicker and thinner bits, like so. Okay? You can see that right here. And that also is a way to differentiate this from the source material, right? Which, if you notice, does not do that. The line art is all one weight. It's very thin. Okay. And as I always say on my other show, on the Draw Along show, that I don't necessarily stick to the sketch with every single line like it must be exactly as it appears in the sketch, because to do so would mean that I would accept whatever mistakes I've made in the sketch and carry them over to the final. I don't want to do that. That would be weird and foolish. Now, Wirt I always see is, slightly less confident character, so this pitching forward of his body as he walks and this sort of sloped shoulders, whatever you want to say, that to me really suits who he is as a character, right? And that's why I want to make sure that that comes through clearly in his design. Little details like having the pants be short, which they are in the show. That's important to me. I want to maintain those design choices, in my own drawing. So I will do that. Put little shadows here and there, like under the ear, here under the cloak, for example. What kind of shoes does he wear? It's impossible to tell because you just can't tell from the design of them. So for that, I have a lot of freedom there. I could make them dark sneakers, but for now, I'm just going to keep them sort of more these traditional shoes. I don't know what you call them. Loafers? Is that the word? Gosh, somebody help me out. I don't know. Not a shoe guy. I'm interested in the shape of the shoes, as somebody who draws stuff, but I don't know what you call those. Okay. That other leg looks pretty messed up, like the angle looks wrong, so let's fix that. This leg is closest to us, this other leg is behind. In reality, if I were walking, my leg wouldn't be going back like that. Probably be down here, so you can draw through. Like, it'd be like down like this and bending back like that. That's probably closer to what's happening with the hips there. So again, this is an instance where I would just change what's happening, make it different from the sketch. Might even make this all just a silhouette. That might be a good decision. Let me see what that looks like. Might push that back in a good way. That might work. I can stick with that for now. If I want to erase with this brush, I hold down my tilde key. Nice, easy little shortcut for you. If you're using a keyboard that is not a North American keyboard, there's probably a workaround for that. I don't know it. If somebody wants to throw that in the chat, that'd be awesome. But what you can also do is you can come over here to the mode of the brush and select clear. And that will take whatever brush you're using and turn it into an eraser temporarily, which is a nice thing. Now that was a little decision I just made right there to give him a little nostril. Not at all going to really change the design that much. It's just the kind of thing that makes it, again, slightly different from, of course, our source material. And that's what I'm looking for, is those little opportunities to just change it like that. Okay, I'll pause here and see if we have any questions. Let's see. Penny loafers, Wade says. Okay. Thank you. Alrighty. No questions at the moment, so I'm just going to carry on with what I'm doing here. I'm not into those little shadows. I don't feel good about that. That just makes things too complicated. It might be enough to just do that, to add a bit of space. That might be okay. So why don't we move on to our buddy Greg here. I want him looking up. Talking to Wirt. There we go. Give him a little nose. Like that. And again, just changing this head to be a bit more of a shape that it just has a bit more variety to the shape than what's in the cartoon. I can look at his ears really fast. Okay, just want to make sure they're not like big and super pronounced. Notice how I'm tucking the ears down here. That helps to show that the head is tilted upwards. So you remember that trick when a head is tilted up, the ears, if you're looking at the person directly, the ears start to move down. If the head is tilted down, the ears start to move up. And that helps to sell that idea that the angle of the head is not straight on anymore. Okay? And he's got this tea kettle on his head. Those of you who watch the show know the reason for that, but for the first 8 episodes, I was pretty confused about that. And that's done by design. That's one of the great things about the show, is that a lot of the stuff that you consider almost maybe surreal about it is explained later on. As you watch, everything becomes clear. You learn why things are the way they are. Why are they dressed the way they are? Stuff like that. It's a really great exposition, the way they do that and explain it to you. But in small bits, they do it in such a brilliant way. It's the kind of show you can tell was made with so much love for the source material, for the basic story, and like everyone who worked on it, you could just feel their enthusiasm for what they were doing. It's amazing. And again, if you haven't seen it, you just have to take my word for it, but it's really great. So when you have an open mouth, you have to make decisions like this. Do I do that? Is that better or worse? Hide the sketch. I think not. I think the closed, or excuse me, the open mouth without the shading, so to speak, is way better. All right, let's go back to our sketch here. Good to have a little guide. Because of the size of this, the size that they are, that's not a good hand. In the art, I don't want to do like add a lot of detail to this frog, right? That wouldn't make any sense. So what I'm going to do is keep the frog really simple. Just going to do this. We're going to have him kind of like that. Could even take that whole back leg and just sort of throw it in shadow like that. You know what I mean? This is a really bad cuff because it's not showing, it's not giving me information. There. See, I want to have information about the contour there. Is it, you know, how it's wrapping around the wrist and the forearm. When you catch yourself doing stuff like that, you know, don't leave it there. Fix it. Definitely have no excuse if you're working digitally because everything can be undone. So, yeah. Fix that stuff. I know I'm cartoonifying everything here, but like stuff like how big this arm is relative to the other arm, you know, I need to fix stuff like that. I want it to still be right for proportion wise, right? Like if it's too big, I gotta fix that. I can't leave it the way it is. I was just talking to somebody today about the little things that you do to improve what you're working on. Even if at the end of the day, maybe no one else would notice those things, they're more important for you as the artist to get in the habit of noticing and fixing. It goes a long way towards your own growth, but also towards just raising the standards you have for yourself and being able to notice when something just isn't good. That's important. Maybe I'm saying all this stuff because I'm getting ready to get back into teaching in the spring. I haven't taught since last spring. So things that are top of mind for me are always, you know, catching students getting complacent, like doing something, drawing a line that just isn't good and then settling for it when they don't have to. You know, they could fix it, make it better. So if you know that, fix it. Okay. It's like doing yourself right. It's doing right by yourself, you know. All right, let's see. Any comments or questions at the moment? Liz says, I've gotten better at noticing when something isn't good. That's important. Yeah, it's important to be able to do that. Step away. One of the things too when you do when you're drawing is you step back more frequently. In an instance like this where I'm talking to all of you and drawing at the same time, I'm not doing it like I normally would, but normally after, you know, every 5 minutes or so I stop and I zoom out, or I just, you know, step up and stand up, look at what I'm doing and look for areas that could be a little better. Now, you know, you could drive yourself crazy doing this and you could overdo it, but do it a little at least. Don't just draw and then say done. Okay? So why don't we hide our sketch here for a minute and see how our two characters look together. There, that looks good. Now, the question is, do we recognize the source material in the drawing that I'm doing? Well, one of the things that goes a long way towards selling this is, of course, the outfits of these characters. You know, we're obviously very distinctive kind of a costume here. So that helps. And then we have the size difference between the two. So anybody that's ever seen Over the Garden Wall knows that Greg has a frog and he has a tea kettle on his head. So that's also going to be obviously very helpful in selling what I'm doing here. And because I have that working for me, I'm really okay. I'm in the safety zone. You know, it's not so much of a departure that nobody knows what's going on. And it's also not so close to the original that it's boring. That's what we're aiming for, okay? Not so close to the original that it's boring. Not so far away that nobody knows who these characters are. That's the goal. Okay, why don't we do, I'm gonna try something here. I'm just gonna take this shadow and I'm gonna scoop it like that. See if I can't get that to read a bit more clearly on the collar and get that collar behind. Right, we don't want a tangent there, so we bring the neck to there. And then we bring the collar around like that and we bump it under like that. There. That to me is a little better. He does have this weird little tie thing, which I don't understand with that little tie that he has there. I don't know if it's an important enough element of his costume, so to speak, that we need to include it. You know, at the scale I'm drawing, it might just be kind of distracting. It might just add too much busyness there. So I'm tempted to just put a button there instead and let it be. And that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, if the creators of Over the Garden Wall have an issue with that, you can obviously reach out. Happy to talk to you. Also, that'll give me an excuse to say, wow, thanks for making such a cool show. I love it. Okay, so for the background, bring our sketch back here. I'm gonna knock that back a little bit down to 20% so it's a little lighter, because right now it feels a little dark. So here's one of those things I could just use some flat colors there to design that out and make that work, and I might do that. That might be kind of a nice contrast. So I can use my lasso tool and I can pop back behind right here. And this is meant to be sort of just a nice rock shape right here. And for this I could use some nice brushes that have some texture to them, things like that. So, you know, we've got these winter brushes coming out, but a better brush set for this particular thing might be the most recent set, the fall 2021 brushes, right here. I just like a lot of the brushes in there for this stuff. Pigmentia, I used the heck out of this one. It's really nice. Can use some nice light color like that. Okay, now I'm gonna bounce that off of a different background color. I'm gonna use this color right here, and on a separate layer, just fill that like so. And then I can come in and, well, I can lock that layer transparency right there if I want. And I could try something a little lighter. And then I can do things like, get that lasso tool again. And I can go a little darker again. Let's go a little cooler and a little darker. And just sort of put some shadow shapes in there. So like this could be this. Oops. Now in front of that, I'm going to put some grass and things like that. But here I might want to be a bit more angular, so I'll do this. That could be a little rock back there behind them. And I could carry on like sort of building the background like this. Go back a little warmer like we did earlier. And go lighter here. This is the kind of thing, you know, that I do all day long, which is just kind of go back and forth until I get something I like. And I'll make sure these are on different levels. You know, I'll cover the grass more over here and bring this one down maybe. You know, I could combine these now since they're both fine. Slide this one down a little bit. So they're offset. That is very important. Okay, now behind them, I can throw these nice shapes in for the brush and whatnot. Go warmer still. And lighten it up. And while I'm here, I'm going to just isolate my two main characters. Actually, I created an action that I've been thinking about sharing with everybody that maybe will work with this. Let me see if I can get it to work. I'll try it with I should have tried it with both of them actually. Let me see if I can get it to work here. First I'll do this just for safety. And I'll isolate them for a moment. Hide that layer. Let's come back to our line art. So I had this action I created to auto matte stuff. Let me see what happens if I try that. Auto matte. Did it work? Let's see if it threw it in there. Yeah, it did a interesting job of it. Sure, it did pretty well for Word actually. Yeah, looks good for Wirt. Greg, not so much. But for Greg, I'll just go ahead and add the rest myself. Yeah, I really want this to be something that works. But, you know, I think if it doesn't work perfectly every time, it's still going to get people like a long way there, especially if they use a brush that isn't as textured as the one I'm using. You can see this line art brush I have leaves a lot of gaps in it. And that's part of the reason why the Automat just didn't know what to do with those spaces. Know what I mean? So let's try this. There we go. So yeah, I could probably continue to refine it, but I do have problems with it. It doesn't always do what it's supposed to do. All right, so you can see here I have an issue with my values. So the brush there behind them is not, like the rocks need to be darker. So I just go like this, grab my curves, darken the rocks, you know, easy fix. Bring down the lights a little bit. Just make sure that they stand out against that brush. And then the brush shapes, they also need work. Probably what I need to do is go in and do something like, since we're keeping this cartoony, do stuff like this. Just fix that silhouette so it looks more like leaves, you know? Like I said earlier, if you know something doesn't look great, come on guys, right? Fix it. First, establish what needs to be changed. Why does it look wonky? Why isn't it doing the trick? And when you know what that is, come up with a solution and fix the problem. Don't just let it sit there looking nasty. No excuse for that. Can you hear that violin in the background? That's my very talented children practicing their violins. They've been playing now for 8 years. I could never do anything that well when I was their age. There, see the difference? Look at that. Look at that. Looks so much better. Okay. So, pause for, how do you decide line weights, says Vitor? That's experience right there. There are some rules that you can apply when you're thinking about stuff like the weight. If you're drawing an object, put more line weight on the bottom of that object. For example, go back up to my little draw along brush here. If I'm drawing a circle, see how I weight down the bottom like that? It just helps to say this object has some weight and some form. And you know, if I draw someone's arm, it's like the weight comes where there's, like here I would go, like that, zam. You know, sometimes you taper thin to thick over the length of the area that you're covering for that individual sort of passage in the line. Does that make sense? Obviously modeling this totally ripped bod on my own naturally. If only I had time to be totally buff. All right. Why don't we carry on? You can look up some good videos about line work. Look up Paulo Rivera's inking demo. Paulo Rivera, P-A-O-L-O, Rivera. He does a great inking demo where he just very graciously sort of explains what he's thinking about when he's inking stuff. And you're guaranteed to learn something from that. It's awesome. you don't know Paolo and his work, check him out. He's a renowned Marvel comics as well as other comics artist. He's done some cool Hellboy stuff. He's done, just all kinds of things. Very, very good artist. The world is full of talented people. It's the wonderful thing. It's great to be able to just see so much now. You can just surf on Instagram and be like, wow, more inspiration there, more inspiration there, more inspiration there. You can do it all day. Problem with that, of course, is it can be a little disheartening if you see, oh, everybody's better than me. That's not a good way to do it. But just to gather some ideas and just to look at different styles and whatnot. Yeah, it's nice. It's a really, I used to have to go to the library and find illustration annuals and collections of people's work, and I had to know who those people were before I even got there, if I was going to look for them and find the stuff I wanted, Not always easy. So, we live in a world where you can find a lot of cool stuff. All right, let's get some more layers in here. Some tall grasses. Whoops. Throw some of those in there. We'll go ahead and paint that in. We'll go a little more creamy here in our color choices, and a little lighter, and we'll do this. Pew, 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 pew. Like that. And then we'll go ahead and build another layer on top of those rocks and throw some more of that action in there. Just keeping my eye on the time. Want to make sure we get enough of this background in so you get the idea and you see this process and how simple it is to work this way. And bear in mind, I'm racing the clock here. Normally I would take a lot more time to consider my choices, but nobody got time for that. Let us now come in here and do a little background color. So I'm gonna go a little bit more towards the greens. Knock that in. Go a little lighter towards the bottom. You can hear that. You can hear how violent I am with my Wacom pen. But let me tell you, it can put up with the abuse. There's no issue. I've never had a problem. Never once have I had a pen poop out on me. Never. Not once. And I've been using Wacom devices since 1998. Never once. At the end of the day, when I'm like, I'm gonna move up to a different model. You know what I do? I just donate them to a public school where they can put it in the computer lab. And those things just keep on kicking. They're pretty amazing. Let's hide that sketch for a second. There you go. You can see that works. If you're struggling with colors, you can watch my video about mixing colors, which I did a couple weeks ago. Go to my YouTube channel and check out my color mixing video. highly recommend it for just understanding, like, because digital color, you have way too many choices, right? And the method I use 9 times out of 10, although I'm not doing it today, is I will go ahead and just mix colors like I would with traditional media. I do it like I would do with paint. Mix them on the surface using a brush that recognizes the pressure I'm using with my pen, and yeah, just solves it right there. Everything works out. It's beautiful. Really, really effective. Now, why did my silhouette not... Huh, I guess it didn't want to get the hat and head for Wirt for some reason, but we'll just knock that in quickly. Like I said, it's not perfect, that little auto matte thing, but I'm working on it. So there you have the 2 characters popping off of this background. And I'll throw just quickly a few tree shapes in there so you understand like how I would advance from this point forward. Getting the colors on them is easy. You know, I mean, you could literally just sample colors. Of course, you want the lighting to be right, yada yada yada. But you know, that in that instance, sure, I could do something like this. Select my silhouette like that, and I could just mask. Right there, now I've got a mask on this layer, and I can do whatever I want. I can select and paint. So pop it up here, there you go. And paint like that, you know, and do the same for the cloak right here. I can come way outside the lines because of that mask, so that makes a big difference. Look at that. Simple. I could grab one of these colors to do my flesh here. That might work. His hair is pretty dark. You know, this is what I would just continue to do. So keep pushing it. Like, is that cape too dark? Yeah, it's too dark for what I'm doing right now. So just grab it, pull up your curves, brighten that up a touch. You know, you could do this, stuff like that. In fact, you can take the whole thing, brighten it up a touch, and so yeah, that reads a little clearer. Okay, fine. Play with everything else. But that's the beauty of working like this. You can just be so fast with stuff like that. I'm gonna bring my sketch back for just a moment here so I can see kind of the ideas I had for some of the trees. I'm gonna borrow color from here, and I'm just gonna go cooler with it, like that. And I'll show you a little trick here. So what I'm gonna do is, I'll select one of the tree shapes here. So let's do, I wanted this one to be like the biggest tree of the bunch right here. Okay, and I'll throw a little branch there. And here's my trick for you. I'm going to use this Pigmentia brush. Whoops, let's make a layer. Sorry about that, gang. Let's make a layer here above the sky. And I'm going to start painting, but I'm going to go lighter as I get towards the bottom, like this. And then as I get closer to the top, just darken it up. Like that. And then throw a couple of more strokes on it like this. And then if I hide my sketch for a moment, you see that just helps again to sort of push it back. And then what you can do is, if there's like, see how there's not enough contrast between the bushes there and the tree? So what I can do here is I can take that tree shape, excuse me, the bushes shape, this layer right here, and I can lock its layer transparency. And then I can just take this color, go way darker, and lock the layer transparency, and just hit it a few times there towards the top, just to add that contrast, right? I could throw it in wherever I want. And then that's going to separate it from the tree. The other thing I can do is with the tree itself is I can do things like get rid of some of the tree at the bottom. So take a quick look at it here. There you go. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you took away some stuff from it that you find useful. And the general idea is make it your own. Don't just copy the source material, and I think you're going to be in good shape. Everybody have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Remember to be kind, and I will say ciao for